The Old Fisherman. Our house was across the street from the entrance of a famous hospital in the city. We lived downstairs and rented the upstairs rooms to outpatients at the clinic. As I was fixing supper one summer evening, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to see a truly awful-looking man. He's hardly taller than my 8-year-old, I thought as I stared at the stooped, shriveled body. But the appalling thing was his face, lopsided from swelling, red and raw. Yet his voice was pleasant as he said, "Good evening. I've come to see if you have a room for just one night. I came for treatment from the Eastern Shore this morning, and there's no bus till the morning." He told me he'd been hunting for a room since noon, but he had no success as no one seemed to have a room. I guess it's my face. I know it looks terrible, but my doctor says with a few more treatments. For a moment, I hesitated, but his following words convinced me I could sleep in this rocking chair on the porch. My bus leaves early in the morning. So I told him we would find him a bed but to rest on the porch. I went inside and finished getting supper. When we were ready, I asked the old man if he would join us. "No, thank you. I have plenty." And he held up a brown paper bag. When I had finished the dishes, I went out on the porch to talk with him for a few minutes. It didn't take long to see that this older man had a big heart crowded into that tiny body. He told me he fished for a living to support his daughter, her 5 children, and her husband, who was hopelessly crippled from a back injury. He didn't tell it by way of complaint. In fact, every other sentence was prefaced with thanks to God for a blessing. He was grateful that no pain accompanied his disease, which was a form of skin cancer. He thanked God for giving him the strength to keep going. At bedtime, we put a camp cot in the children's room for him. When I got up in the morning, the bed linens were neatly folded, and the little man was out on the porch. He refused breakfast, but just before he left for his bus, haltingly, as if asking a great favor, he said, "Could I please come back and stay the next time I have a treatment? I won't put you out a bit. I can sleep fine in a chair." He paused a moment and then added, "Your children made me feel at home. Grown-ups are bothered by my face, but children don't seem to mind." I told him he was welcome to come again. On his next trip, he arrived a little after 7 in the morning. He brought a big fish and a quart of the largest oysters I had ever seen as a gift. He said he had shucked them that morning before he left so that they'd be nice and fresh. I knew his bus left at 4 a.m., and I wondered what time he had to get up to do this for us. In the years he came to stay overnight with us, there was never a time that he did not bring us fish or oysters or vegetables from his garden. Other times we received packages in the mail, always by special delivery, fish and oysters packed in a box of fresh young spinach or kale, every leaf carefully washed. Knowing that he must walk 3 miles to mail these and knowing how little money he had made the gifts more precious. When I received these little remembrances, I often thought of a comment our next-door neighbor made after he left that first morning. "Did you keep that awful-looking man last night?" I turned him away. You can lose rumors by putting up such people. Maybe we did lose rumors once or twice. But oh! If only they could have known him, perhaps their illnesses would have been easier to bear. I know our family will always be grateful to have known him. From him, we learned to accept the bad without complaint and the good with gratitude. Recently I was visiting a friend who has a greenhouse. As she showed me her flowers, we came to the most beautiful one of all, a golden chrysanthemum, bursting with blooms. But to my great surprise, it was growing in an old, dented, rusty bucket. I thought to myself, if this were my plant, I'd put it in the loveliest container I had. My friend changed my mind. I ran short of pots, she explained, and knowing how beautiful this one would be, I thought it wouldn't mind starting in this old pail. So it's just for a little while till I can put it out in the garden. She must have wondered why I laughed so delightedly, but I imagined just such a scene in heaven. Here's a wonderful one, God might have said when he came to the soul of the sweet old fisherman. He won't mind starting in this small body. The next story. The Frog and the Mouse. A young mouse was running along the bank of a pond, exploring and admiring the beautiful nature. A frog also lived along the same bank. When the frog saw the young mouse loitering around his area, he swam near the mouse and croaked, "Do you want to pay me a visit to the wonderful world inside the pond? I can promise you a good time full of adventure if you do." The mouse did not have anything to do and was eager to see and explore the world around. So, he did not need much coaxing and quickly agreed to join the adventure under the pond. Although the mouse could swim a little, he did not want to risk going into the pond all on his own without any help. The frog offered a plan to tie the mouse's leg to his own with a reed, so he could quickly rescue the mouse when necessary. The mouse agreed to the frog's plan, and they jumped into the pond. The frog jumped into the pond and dragged the mouse along with him. The mouse soon realized being pulled inside the pond was no fun. Finally, he had enough of it and requested to return to shore, but the treacherous frog did not bother. Instead, he pulled the mouse deeper into the pond and drowned him. A hawk was flying over the pond when he saw the mouse struggling and drawing in the water. So, the hawk came sailing over the pond and swooped the mouse. Along with the mouse was the frog dangling from his leg. So, the hawk got lucky to have both the mouse and the frog for his dinner. While the mouse had to meet the unfortunate end due to his foolishness, the frog ended up being the hawk's dinner merely due to his treacherous intentions. Moral: those who seek to harm others often come to harm themselves through their own deceitful actions. The next story. How do you want to be remembered? More than a decade ago, a man was reading his morning newspaper. To his surprise and horror, he read his name in the obituary column. The newspapers had mistakenly reported the death of the wrong person for sure. He was shocked to read a news headline about his death. When he regained his composure, he read it to find out what people had said about him. The obituary included sentences like, "Dynamite King dies," and "He was the merchant of death." The man was the inventor of dynamite, and when he read the words, "merchant of death," he asked himself a question. "Is this how I am going to be remembered?" he asked himself. He decided that this was not the way he wanted to be remembered, and he decided to change. From that day on, he started working toward world peace. His name was Alfred Nobel, and he is remembered today by the Great Nobel Prize, the greatest of all the prizes. The Nobel Prize has been honoring men and women from all corners of the globe for outstanding achievements in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and for work in peace since 1901. The foundations for the prize were laid in 1895 when Alfred Nobel wrote his last will, leaving much of his wealth to the establishment of the Nobel Prize. Moral: it is never late to start over. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you very much.